I know you. Did you say you'd been to Southport, David?
No, Hailing Island.
Oh, any interesting stuff on Hailing Island?
A lot of
No.
water.
All
No.
right. No. Well. It's something interesting anyway, isn't it? So,
It's
uh,
different.
anyway, good to see you back, David. And I really apologise about that night. It was a matter of we couldn't do the Tuesday, and um, yeah, I sent you an email. Um, we were going to phone you, but we didn't get. I don't know. There was a disaster, so I do apologise. But you're with us tonight, so that's the main thing.
Right.
Um, Good to see you back, David. And yes, you haven't lost any limbs. That's the main thing. Um, Talking about limb losing, what about you, Margaret? And then Judith, get your mic on.
Well, I had sent David a card from us all because I was fearing the worst because we
Oh well,
haven't heard
that's
anything.
that's obviously the reason David stayed away because he wanted a postcard. So there's no other. Did you notice David didn't send us a postcard?
I
That's the
know.
uh,
I know.
David. Next time it's your turn, right, Margaret?
No, I've got no news actually. No, I
Okay.
just had a glance at my phone to see if there was any new archaeological news. And the only thing is remains of a Neolithic settlement near Göbekli Tepe.
Oh, not another blooming prehistoric settlement, me go Deppy Teppy.
But Neolithic, I
Oh,
mean,
okay,
Göbekli
fair enough.
Tepe is much older than Neolithic, isn't it? What era would that be? What period would that be? 12,000 years ago. What did they call
Bloody
that?
old. Well, the problem is, what we've got from Godepi Tepe, we've got at least dating evidence from about, if I can remember my dates, was something around 8,000 years ago, but they're looking at a lot earlier than that.
12,000, but that have been
Yeah.
their Mesolithic?
That was their Mesolithic, yeah. But in fact, it wasn't the Mesolithic because if you're able to produce something like that, you're in your Neolithic. So you know it's
Oh, okay.
quite an odd one.
Yeah,
And it's just as I keep saying, as I said so many times before, dates is not important. It really isn't important at all, you know?
well, it just gives you a gauge, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
It does certainly give you a gauge, exactly.
yeah.
Nothing more than that, really. Um, right, okay then, Judith.
Hello.
Yeah, and
I've got no news. Sorry, the dog's just come in and slathered on everything.
the thing is, Judith, we can imagine you through like a wooden thing through your nose like that. I can see you like that.
Rearranged.
That's
Like
exactly what I look like.
like a big wooden thing through your nose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's made of bone.
Yeah, no, it's not going to be pencil, is he, you silly woman? But yeah, I tell you what, Margaret, you've got to do things right. Or maybe what you could do, she could have a clay pipe through her nose.
Why not?
So
Yeah,
basically,
I've got one of those, those circle plate things like they have in the Amazon. I've got one of them.
what, around your neck
No, my lip.
or
Oh,
through your lip?
a big lip saucer.
Hang on,
Yeah,
that's a lot,
yeah,
isn't
like
it?
that. Yeah, exactly like
Like that.
that. With the
I
bone through my
really like
nose.
that.
Exactly.
Like that. I don't even know there. Um, they've got to have it just for show, haven't they? Right, okay, but you can't have the neck rings for show. You've got to That's a really interesting one because the neck rings are added are given to you when you're young, and then you've got more added when you're young, and then eventually you can't get them off your neck. That's
No,
it. I'll just
apparently I've heard
yeah.
that. And if you did take them off, then your head would practically fall off because you've got no neck, have you? And it's all like elongated.
Yeah, I've actually heard of that. Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
It
It's a
sounds
bit
pretty
like
grim.
it's pretty good. It's a bit like being a I better be careful, a Sunderland football supporter, you know what I mean? Anyway, so what we're gonna do, I thought, right, we got low numbers tonight, whatever reasons that is, and we're gonna look at the scatness images. lots of really nice, interesting images with scatness, and we can discuss the images. And I've got a lot of them, so let's just do that. Sod it. And they were here last week ready, actually, and we didn't have time to look at them. So what we're going to do, we're going to do this. Instead of me talking about access analysis and David thinking, you know, what the hell's going on here, right? I would prefer to do access analysis we are with other people about, and we'll finish the Roman stuff next week. But we've got a bit of Roman stuff this week as well, which is really odd. So what you can see all them there, yeah, aren't you? And you can see all them there, right? And all of this year, all of these images, right? Whether we're going to get to them or not, I don't know. But before we do anything, right? This is nothing to do with what we're doing, but this is a metal object from the Second World War. It's actually a Yankee screw pin that was used to fasten down a light railway line along the coast on South Wales, right? Basically, they drilled a hole in the rock and they put a metal pin in it, and then they poured concrete, right? And this held down the railway line. And Andy's just joined us, so I've got to actually come back out. And we're going to actually add Andy, and we're just gonna keep flowing. So right, and what I will do is add Andy on as administrator as well, because if I don't, we're gonna have to come back out the images again, and we're gonna have to go back in. So there we go. Andy, we're cracking straight on.
Yeah, no worries.
And the biggest problem is tonight, Andy, we don't have. I wanted to do the access analysis stuff, and I haven't got, you know, Roger and Drina from last week, and I wanted to introduce Anne to it. So I thought, if we're going to complete the access analysis thing, let's just do it next week, which makes sense. So we've got a smaller class. We're gonna finish earlier tonight anyway. I do believe, Andy, you're gonna have complaints from your family if you don't finish early tonight. So that does us all well. I understand your daughter's back from where?
Yeah, from Bournemouth. Yeah, we're off up to Glasgow tomorrow. So yeah, that'll be good.
Right. Yeah, let's have an early finish. Anyway, I've got to I've been on set all day anyway, so that would seem the best thing to do. So we'll finish the access analysis thing next week, Andy, in regards to the Roman stuff, which makes sense.
Yep. Good plan.
And it'll give chance for David to catch up as well if we do this scatness stuff.
Okay.
Anyway, we've been looking at the scatness stuff for the past few weeks, and obviously what I wanted to do with scatness was actually show you artifacts that you're going to think, right, okay, what's all this about? And we're going to just basically try and say, look, the Iron Age world is a lot more illuminated, a lot more advanced, a lot more modern, a lot more closer to us than meets the eye, right? It's a lot more civilized, in other words. So again, Shetland, the southern tip of Shetland, we've got Giles Hoff that we've mentioned before. We've got the site of Old Scatness, and just where the word Scatness is in fact the runway. And we won't bore you to death with the runway again tonight. But again, that's our site of Scatness, and the buildings that very much interest us are these buildings here, buildings 12 and buildings 8. And most of the material that we do look at are actually from, hang on, let's get that back on, annotation again. The bits of the building we are really interested in are in fact this building here, which is that industrial part of the building. And most of the most fascinating artifacts that have been found at Scatness have been found in that building there, right? Industrial building, we've got metal objects, we've got bone objects, we've got loads of stuff. It's a fascinating piece of Iron Age history. And so far away from the Iron Age, you're thinking, what's going on here? And in fact, we have got a bit today that I want to read out, if we've got time, that basically tells us that there's loads of Roman stuff that's actually been found at this site. But this is Shetland. Obviously, the Romans never ever got to Shetland, did they? And in fact, there's loads of glass objects being found scattered around this site. And you're thinking, yeah, but the Romans never ever got to Shetland. You can answer that yourself. One of the things that Judith will be aware is that on YouTube, I do my daily blog about King Arthur and actors and OCD, and I'm starting to do a little bit of a Roman one as well. So if anyone's on my YouTube channel, then sign on to that. So, oh, and again, forgotten to say that we do have some objects and a really fascinating piece of the Broch. The entranceway into the Broch that you can't actually see from above look very, very similar, right? I kid you not, to the Lion's Gate that was excavated at Mycenae by Heinrich Schliemann, dating to 3,200 years ago. And I do a bit of a comparison, hopefully at the end. So we'll see how that goes. So again, let's just crack off and let's just go. So again, old scatness, Jarlshof, there you go. We've seen this image before, the dark green areas, farmland, rough grazing, the bit in between, the sort of brown area, the sort of boggy, marshy, peaty, horrible area that we will, well, that sets the scene of old scatness, which we're doing. So straight on to this. So we're looking at some beautiful objects, and obviously what we've got in regards to the economy, in regards to trying to understand this site. You've got stone bowls, you've got pottery bowls, you've got wooden objects, you've got all that sort of huge array of archaeology that's been excavated at the site, and lots of sort of semi-complete examples. And it's fascinating that we look at Iron Age pottery and it looks very crude. But on this site, what we do have is evidence of Roman pottery that has actually been found here as well. And they found thousands and thousands of objects. If you want to think about pottery that have been excavated at this site, thousands of them. And as we've got rims, these would be nicely referred to as diagnostic rims. So when we mean by diagnostic, if it's a rim, we can try and build the pot so we got bits right. So what I'm talking about, if you find a bit of a artifact like that, you can understand what the rim was like, you can understand what the body was like, and hopefully you can get an idea of the height of the object as well. You can definitely get an idea of the width. If you've got enough curvature on an object, you can get an idea of the wonderful circumference and diameter of the pot, if not the height. So pottery and obviously lots of forms of pottery have been found at this site, and lots of them in building 8. It's fascinating that we think of little bits of pottery, and when we think of Time Team, for example, we would take that little bit of pottery there. Over on the right hand side, pottery 285, and usually on Time Team you can build a whole city by finding a little bit of pottery. I used to love the way you used to do that, and it would be usually the only bit of pot that they'd ever find. I remember seeing one episode, this is how the town looked from one single bit of pottery. I thought, that's good. But forget that. At Scatness, what they found is thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of objects, lots of them being pottery and bone objects as well. And we may have seen this before. I know we sort of showed this before, but this is a bit of decorated pottery. Now, one thing inside decorated pottery. So one thing that I usually say about the Iron Age is that they really didn't have decorated pottery in the Iron Age, but they did. So there we go. Contradicted myself. Usually they didn't have decorated pottery in the Iron Age. They were utilitarian. They were basic storage, maybe for cooking, all sorts of reasons. You got this different pottery, and it's again fascinating that bits of pottery can tell us a great deal about this world. And again, diagnostic. When people talk about this is diagnostic pottery, this tells you of the forms of the pottery. One just a thing that I would chuck in here quickly is from the Flinders Petrie, for example. When Flinders Petrie he devises a system called seriation. Now, seriation itself is when you take basic forms of pottery, right? And you think, right, the basic forms of pottery are usually the oldest types of pottery, and the more complicated bits of pottery and the more recent bits of pottery. The decoration on the pot tells you it's more recent, right? That's when you look at ancient Egypt, but sometimes there are exceptions to the rule, as you can clearly see. The one on the right there, which is marked 722, in bottom right hand corner, you might be able to think that there is obviously hang on, that there would be the basic form of pottery, because this here looks like it's not advanced like this one. But the big difference is that this bit of pottery hasn't got this bit of pottery. Hang on, get rid of that. This bit of pottery hasn't got decoration on it, but it's got the rims curving over. But it hasn't got any decoration. So where does this come into the table? So in absence of seriation, trying to look at how things develop, what we do, we look at radiocarbon dates, and this all dates to the Iron Age. So those Iron Age dates, roughly the 300 years BC mark, those are the types of dates that we're talking about with this pottery. So again, when we sort of develop the forms of pottery again, the word diagnostic sherds, and we're thinking, yes, again, this is a later Middle Ages, Middle Iron Age pottery. All the stuff that we're talking and looking at today is Iron Age, and this is a fascinating thing, right? And this is absolutely fascinating, right? Now, this object itself is actually a stone object. It's a stone bowl. So we've got stone bowls being found at the site. And it's based, you know, this is a thing, you know, these vessels that we're thinking of, vessels. You can get pottery which is as thick as this, usually early types of pottery which is as thick as this. You get stone objects that are like this as well. Now, one of the most fascinating things is, because I know we've extensively looked at the pottery, and I just thought, right, one thing I wanted to do was to look at lots of other objects that have actually been found on site. And what you've got 4 objects here, and these 4 objects are recycled bits of pottery, right? They're all recycled bits of pottery. Now, you could think that the ones on the right hand side are one of the things, again, we've got to open up our minds. One of the things that we think about the Roman world is the Romans were the great recyclers. Because why do we say that? When we go outside Rome, for example, there's an artificial hill outside Rome, and it's I think 10 meters high of amphora. It's a mound made of amphora, right? And we're thinking, the Romans didn't recycle that, did they? They just piled it up there, you know, big sort of mound, 10 meters tall, you know, full of amphora. But what we do have is, in the Roman world, usually what they do is break pottery up and put it in their mortar mixes, and they would recycle it. And this is the thing, you see. We usually say that the Romans were the great recyclers, but sometimes they weren't, as we know by the big stack outside Rome. But when we look at the Iron Age people are recyclers as well. So there we go. So the 2 on the left are spindle wheels, obviously, nice bit of spindling using my sheep's wool back in the day. And on the right, you could think about, what are these objects on the right? Could they be counters for playing a game, or are they little stoppers for wooden containers? What are they? Are they weights? You know, the thing is, again, we're expanding our mind, and we're thinking, right, they've got different things. They're doing different things. It's not just as simple. It's not just black and white. You know, there are different things going on. Their material culture is a little bit more varied than little bits of broken pottery found on an archaeological site. And you might be able to think that the ones on the left could actually be used as jewelry, right? Are they just used as spindle wheels? Because if you go on Michelle's Etsy site, we find she's got bits of objects like this, and we sell them to people on the internet, and they use them as pendants. And no, they're not spindle wheels. So again, we're assuming that they're spindle wheels, but they could have been used for something else. Okay, Andy's into his water. They could be used for fishing weights, right? There's loads of different things that when you recycle objects that they could actually be used for. And again, we got the idea of recycling, right? So again, what we're looking at is this is known as schist or schist disc. This is a schist disc, which is basically SCHIST. It's not actually showing now. You can't. It's a bit blurred, really. But this is a type of stone. It's like a greeny sort of stone. It's really soft. You can carve it. It's more or less perfectly circular. And again, discs. They like their discs. What are these discs about? They may have they may have been potters, right? You know what I mean by that. Stone tossing in water. I am actually really good at stone tossing. I was actually going to go to the stone tossing championship, right? Stone tossing discs, and we start to think that obviously that their minds are like ours, right? When we the other week when we were looking structurally, we were thinking structurally. They got a building number 8, and we're thinking, right, they've got they've got various sort of furnaces and various other things. Am I showing something there? Oh no, maybe not. They've got various furnaces and various things in a room, and they lived in this room, and how they moved around the room, access analysis, footfall, and we've got areas where we got hearths and so on. And I think one or two of you said, when are we going to look at the artifacts? As we're looking at the artifacts. So basically, what we've done is we've looked at the buildings, two of the buildings in particular, building 12, building 8, at Scatness, and what we're doing, we're chucking in the furniture. We're actually chucking in the objects, right? So what we've got is now we can start to build up our minds. We can start to think, right? We've clearly got the objects, and now everything's coming together, and we're starting to understand what's going on. Now these objects on the right, are they spindle wheels? Well, no, on the right in front of us. Are they spindle wheels, or are they just are they beads? Are stone beads. Now, beads for bracelets, beads for jewelry. There's loads of these. Actually, I could have shown you that there's a mixture of stuff. Obviously, we've got the idea of spindle wheels, we've got the idea of beads, right? And the idea that in lots of other parts of the world they use beads as currency, right? And you're just thinking, these forms of currency, Andy, there's no way could they have had currency, and there's no way did they have any form of writing. And we start to think, well, there we go. They've got bits of stones in lots of these cultures, and we're thinking, it can't be writing, right? Linear A, linear B, and we think about the Minoans. That can't be a language, and it is. It's written language. But what I'm trying to do is trying to say, could these things be something else other than beads for decoration? Do they mean a lot more than that? Actually, when we've got beads around their neck, when we've got wedding rings, they are a form of currency, right? Andy, your wedding ring's a form of currency. It's your love for your wife. You made it. You got that gold, and you melted it, and brilliant. So in other words, when we think about all these different things, and I'm glad over the years, I'm glad people tell me things, so we can bring them into the lecture. But when we think again, and we've got to be a lot more open and less cavalier, and less sort of Prince Rupert going into battle and just coming up with an idea, right, losing the battle, right? What we've got to do, we've got to battle our own mind, and we could just try and open our minds and start to think, well, these people are a little bit more interesting, they're a little bit like us, they got jewelry, they got things like that, they got meaningful things. Oh my God, do I say they're materialistic, right? Am I saying they're materialistic? Now these things are classed. These are stone objects, right? Beach found stone objects, large perforated weights, right? Are they weights, or could they be to do with something else? They're really interesting. The way that they've been formed, that they've been. You can see there that they've got some kind of drill in each of these, and the one on the left and the right actually is not that clear, but you can see that it's been sort of drilled out, and there's a hole. The drill's not gone all the way through. Why is that? What's going on here? What is this about? Is it maybe these could be firestones, right? Firestones. You rubbing. You could put. There you go. Let's just make it easy. You could put a bit of dry material in each of them bracket fungus, dry bracket fungus, a bit of wood, bit of fiction, and you might be able to start a fire. Bit of wool in there. We don't. The thing is, it's just trying to change our mind and trying to open our mind and try to understand really what's going on. Have I got a better, clearer one? Yeah. These. I'm not going to ask you what these are because it clearly says at the bottom of the image. Stone lamps, right? So, how many of us have been along the beach and found something that looks like something? Daddy, there's a thing over there that looks like a little heart. You collect that thing and give it to their mum. Look at that! Found a stone on the beach that looks like a heart. Right? That stone hasn't been carved. Right? It looks like a heart. Clearly, there's a chance you find a stone on the beach that looks like a heart. Right? There's also a chance on the beach that you might find stones that have been naturally hollowed and moved and environed by the sea. Perfect lamps. Right? Ready-made lamps. How many things have we found on the beach that's ready-made? That's ideal. That is. And Andy's on a beach. So there's a bit of wood being washed in. He needs a bit of wood for a shelf. There you go. He's got an instant shelf. He hasn't need to go into any of those Travers and Perkins or anything like that. So sometimes what we can do, we can find things and these are all stone objects. A large stone bowl, right? So have they carved out this stone bowl, or is there something natural about it? Natural erosion. When I've been with people on beaches, it's like, Carl, look at this. It's been influenced by human hands, and you're thinking, no, it's natural. That can occur natural, but it can't. Mother Nature can't create these things. So what we got in nodules, you get nodules, natural nodules in the past, full of quartz and feldspar and calcite and all these other things. You crack out all those crystals and you've got a ready-made bowl. You haven't had to do any work, right? So again, we get natural things that are being found on archaeological sites that are naturally collected, and these people haven't done much work with it. And in fact, sometimes I found a beautiful stone off the beach, and we listed it on our Etsy account, and it was just like, right, that'll go well. It was like a little claw type thingamajig, right? Somebody might buy that. And again, the people in the past were like us. They collected curios. They got curios, and it's the same thing. I'm digging the quarry in West Wales, right, and I'm digging out stone, perfect for the roadway, right? It's perfect to create driveway, roadway, naturally occurring. There it is, brilliant, right? So I wanted to show you this. It says at the bottom, it's a triangular limestone sharpening block, right? But maybe that could be a tally stone, right? It really depends what archaeologist is touched in the stone, right? And you're thinking, is that for sharpening stone, or is it to keep a tally, or is it somebody who's decided that they're going to etch on a stone? Now, I gotta be clear, right? When you're marking a stone, right? When you're marking a stone, right? And I'm a bit wary about this being called a sharpening stone, by the way, but we'll talk about that in a minute. It's very difficult to create a curve, right? It's very easy to create. Well, it's not easy to create a line, but lines are easier to create than a curve. Now, if this is a sharpening block, right? You're going to be blunting your tools, right, by making those grooves. You've got to stroke the stone, right? You've got to go the other side. And by creating these marks, it goes against the idea of a sharpening stone. So what are these marks, right? Obviously, Is it to do with ploughing? It could this been called by ploughing? You know, the adze has gone through in the ground, but these are small stones, relatively small stones. Remember, this is 20 millimeters. Is that going to work? No, let's start again. If you look at the scale, right, so the maximum this is about 6 or 7 centimeters across. This is going to make a very small, very dangerous sharpening stone. It's clearly not going to work. So what are those lines on there? Again, that's the question. What are they doing? What does that represent? How does this help us understand the past and how the past operated? So there we go. That's more stones on. That's more marks on it. What are they telling us? What is this about? Or is this a lot more than just a sharpening stone? Let's not go into conspiracy theories, Judith. This is a little tablet of a lost language that we don't know anything about. But then again, Andy, isn't it? We look at Ogham and there's marks on a stone on Ogham stone, right? And that's a language, right? Because it's more organized, right? And then again, I'm a pain for having a scribbled post-it note, right? And I'm looking at it now. It's in my hand. I got a post-it note. There's scribbles on it, right? And that's basically what I do in the day. Then I get back, scribble it all out, and I've got another post-it note with a load more scribbles on it, right? That's the way I do things. Maybe they did that in the past. What I'm not giving you is answers, because I don't really think that when we're looking and it says that this is a sharpening stone, there is in fact a sharpening stone. It could actually be something else. So this is actually what's left of a rotary quern, right? So this is the top part of a rotary quern, right? And basically, basically a rotary quern is that you'd have another stone underneath, right? And you'd have a piece of wood in there. Hang on a minute. Let's go there. You'd have a, hang on, get rid of all that there. Hang on, stop that a minute. Right, here we go. Let's annotate. So what you do, this, if you saw this flat, right, you'd have a piece of wood in there, and you'd have a piece of wood in there, and that would be the axle, right? So in other words, you'd have that there, you'd have an axle there, right? And that there would be there, and you'd have another. So this is in fact this stone, right? And there's a little hole that goes through it. Or there's 2 holes. Hang on a minute, start again. Start again. Let's do a little bit better, right? Otherwise we're going to get lost. So we've got the axle there, which is there, and then this would be very tight on top of each other. So that's that stone. That hole itself might actually be another piece of wood, and there might be another hole there. So what you would do, therefore, as you're turning this around, right, and you've got the axle here, somebody would then add grain through another hole. But because this isn't complete, we don't really know what's going on. Or the easiest way, Andy, is to take this thing off the axle, put a load of grain in here, right? And then it would then turn into flour, right? Usually what would happen is the quernstone underneath, if we get rid of that, the quernstone underneath is actually bigger than this stone, okay? So basically the flour would form on this this lip, right? So there's different ways you could, but this is a quernstone. So they're grinding grain. We've got lots of, it's known as a rotary quernstone. We've got lots of bits of rotary quernstones, and we think that this dates to the time of the birth of Christ and the years after, right? Now, this is a quartz eraser. No, it's not. It's a quartz rubber. And what a rubber is, it's basically, you know, you're honing the skin, right? Or you would burnish the outside of a pot. It's a rub stone. It's a quartz rub stone. It's really smooth. You know, you would rub the outside of something, right? And again, these can have different interpretations. They can naturally have different meanings, different directions, and different understandings. Let's go on. Let's move on. Now, when we're thinking of technology, right? Oh God, I was going to say, what is this? And it's got it there. Sorry, it's getting a scratch and sniff. But you know what this is, right? But let's forget that it's got that there, right? Margaret, what would you think this is? It's made of stone. It's a beach stone. It's been pecked. It's been formed. Is this a knife or what? What else could this be, Margaret?
Well, it says it's a cobble knife, but
Forget it.
I would have thought it was a hand axe.
Do you know what? Right. Define the difference between a knife and a hand axe. Right. It's both a sense of cutting, right? And you might have a leather guard, and this could actually be to cut kelp, for example, kelp collections. You know, you could use this for absolutely anything, you know, cutting open tubers. It looks very crude. And the thing is, right, when an object looks very crude, you're thinking, oh, these are Stone Age people, you know, but they're creating iron knives, right? They're creating copper tools. They've got technology that is highly advanced, right? So is this not highly advanced for a purpose that we don't rightly understand? Again, knife, axe, or could it be to do with something else? Right, and this is the thing. And also, when we look at objects like this, we always think, oh, obviously, you know, there's a specific use to this. It's a specific thing. What is in fact going on? Yeah, I thought this was a bit odd, right? And this is actually, when you look at this itself, at the base is about 7 centimeters wide at the base. Probably looking about over 10 centimeters wide in the middle, right? And this is quite an interesting object. It's referred to as a large sandstone bar, right? But you could equally think that you might actually be using this maybe to thresh, to bang a rub, right? It looks like a proper paddle, doesn't it? It looks like the type of thing that the okay, this isn't Mickey taking. You might think of early Chinese people in the Olympic Games using these and you know, really heavy things, right? It looks like a bat, right? And you know, it's again trying to put this into perspective. What is this? What is going on with these objects? And you read through the book and you think there's no answers. There's nothing. There's no suggestions what this is. And they found lots of objects like these. They found over 70 of these across the site, and they're not small things. You can't miss them. So there's not accidental these things. They've been deliberately been made and deliberately been created to form a certain narrative, to form a certain understanding, to try and see where we are in this very interesting Iron Age period. Now, here's a show. I should have just ditched the caption stuff at the bottom. It's a bit of a shame, really. But so what we've got is we've got finger rings, stone finger rings. Right now, you might not be surprised to hear that stone finger rings are quite big. If you can get blue john, if you can get hold of small amounts of blue john, you can carve a stone finger ring or a foot ring or something, and they you know, quite big, really. You know, people find them quite interesting ornamentally. A siltstone finger ring, and they've got rings in the past as we've got rings today, right? And that's very, very interesting. Again, lots of these have been found across the site, and again, it's what do these mean? Are they fingerings? Are they to do with something else? Are they part of some kind of a costume effect? You could actually just think about it, Margaret. You can see it, can't you? In your nice sort of woolen outfit, right, with a couple of these finger rings adorning your top. It looked great, right? So again, these people are capable of wonderful things, and we just think, oh, there's just got to be fingerings. Can't be anything else, right? So what we're doing, we're bringing ourselves to a level that we don't really need to be, because these people are a lot more illuminated, a lot more sort of different and a lot more advanced than we think. Interesting enough, this is a comb. This is actually a comb made of stone, not a comb made of bone, a comb made of stone. I forgot. Yeah, there it is. That's a siltstone comb. Right, so you know how long those teeth were. They may not have been much longer, right? And that comb would be perfect for pottery, right? To get the indentations into pottery, right? They might be good if you've got a soft leaf product that you want to eat. You know, you can cut it into strips, type of thing we've got in our kitchen, isn't it? You know, or this could be used as some kind of mapping device, right? It sound what? Oh, come on, Carl. Basically, when we've got native peoples in North America, we find objects like this, right? And they replicate the coastline, right, as mapping objects, right? So I've taken it beyond saying it's a siltstone comb, and I've given you another interpretation. So when you look at these interpretations, the interpretations can be quite useful, right? But then you move it on and you think, actually, there might be something else going on here. You know, there might be more to it than we think, right? So again, what we've got lots of ring objects. This is again a soft stone. This is a steatite. These again ring fragments. Another type of stone. Ornamental stone. That's the color, right? It's actually, the color is actually a bit lighter than that, rather than yellow. It's more of a yellowy green object rather than a full yellowy sort of amber object. And that there is a steatite bracelet fragment. And again, it's referring to this as being carved hexagonally, right? Again, this is a very, very interesting object, and very, very different when we think about the archaeology, right? So how many of these have we got? We've got a few there. That one's very clear, right? So what we got across the site, we've got lots of stones that you've got graffiti on them. I know this looks a bit blurred, but these images look blurred. I'm sorry about that. But the one at the end where you've got the coiled graffiti, you've got these stones with graffiti on them, right? Now, the term graffiti, when we think about it, has been used to describe the deliberate markings in inscribed designs found on a number of stone, principally siltstone artifacts. Siltstone is a relatively soft sedimentary rock, is easily marked and scratched through use, occasionally obscuring deliberate designs and motives where they occur. It is also possible that designs are not deliberate and have been formed through use. That's what we mean, like anything to do with archaeology. One minute they mean something, and the next minute you put something on and it becomes something else. You know, it's a bit like having a document where somebody writes over it in pencil, and then somebody writes over it in like a blue pen, and then somebody, oh right, we'll do some black stuff. We'll write some black in black pen, right? A motif on a sandstone. This has been marked as a counter, right? So a counter, what, a playing counter? Is this their equivalent of chess? Is it a counter, or is it something that somebody kept in their pocket as a curio? How many of these were found? If there's dozens of these found, it might be interpreted as some kind of a game, right? So again, is this to do with a checkerboard, or what is this to do with? Do you need a little objects like this to play checkers, right? Or can you have something a little bit more simple? Again, sort of a herringbony type design. It's not very clear on this one. Again, the image isn't brilliant, but the image on this one is. Now, what is this talking about? What is this design? You can look at this and think, is that a map? You know, what are the what's that? What is in fact hang on. What is going on there, right? Interesting enough, what we've got a sort of weird little motif that goes off. Is this some kind of a bird? You know, what is going on? What does this say? If you look at it different angles, again, it's got a different it's broadcasting something different. You know, it really, really is. And when look at this one, hang on. Now look at that. Now that is really interesting. Right now, it's got at the bottom, it says coiled graffiti on siltstone bar fragment, right? But you've got coils on this and lines, right? You've actually got, if you look, there's 3 sets of coils. No, there's 1 there, there's 2 there, there's 3. There's 3 sets of coils. Now again, these coils themselves, are they to do with the marked lines above? Are they all designed at the same time? Is this created by one person? Is this created by a number of people? Does this mean anything? Is this about the cosmos? Remember the stone circle designs that we got with cup and ring marks? Again, those types of designs that we see typically sort of Neolithic, Bronze Age, you know, those types of designs. Again, this is being found in an Iron Age context. Oh, and by the way, do I take a break now? I'll just show you the next stuff. Let's probably show you the next stuff. And what we're going to do, we're going to have a little bit of a break, and then we'll probably come back after 10 minutes. And we're not going to go on as long tonight, but I do want to show you some really nice things, right? And again, whether we get through all the images, I don't know. We'll just see how that goes. I've got lots of iron and metal objects to show you. Now, these are decorative elements that have actually been painted on stones. We'll come back to these in a minute. Stones, little small painted stones, right, found across the site. Right, there you go, painted stones. Right, look at the designs on these stones. Beautiful. See them? What does that look like to you? And again, there's something when you start to think, hang on a minute, right? Hang on, just calm down a minute. They are little painted stones with little designs on them, and you're thinking, is this actually the Iron Age, or is this that stone? You know those stone. You know what you wander around these days, and you pick up a stone off the ground, and somebody's painted it, right? Painted pebble. So there's whole groups of people across the country. They've painted stone group. So somebody puts a stone on David's windowsill, and David thinks, oh my God, somebody's put a pink stone on my windowsill, the idiots, right? And they're putting it there, David, because they want to send a message and they want you to take a photograph of that and put it on the internet, right? But David, that's today. This is not then. This is the Iron Age, and they've got painted stones as well. A painted pebble. So there we go. So we've got these painted pebbles with daubs and dots and swirls and lines and circles on them, right? And we get these, and you know, a big chunk of these have been found at the site. It's again fascinating. I think more have been found at this one site than anywhere else, right? These painted stones, right? And there's a load of them, painted pebbles with the different designs on them. And these pebbles, they're not huge pebbles. They're pebbles that can be held in your hand or in your palm. But again, look at the designs on them. Look where these people are going in their minds, as we might go in our minds. There, another painted pebble there, and then they're painting them with ochres, and the decoration, and again, the lots of these stones, obviously it's likely that the paint was found to be absorbed well after 1 hour of heating, right? Hang on a minute. So they've added the ochre on then, and they've heated them up, and then the ochre has stayed on the surface, right? It's been fired. It's there. There is a record of what they wanted to tell us. What were they telling us? Did they want to tell us anything? Again, so more little painted pebbles. Some of these are quite small painted pebbles. They're not big painted pebbles. They're little painted pebbles. So the pebble that that David's got on his windowsill is 20 centimeters in length, right? I mean, it's painted all over. Some of these ain't massive. Some are big, right? But these are not random. This is not random at all. This is for a reason, right? Love me for a reason. Let the reason be love. Why are they there? And they are painted to tell us something. Again, more of these painted objects, right? From the later Iron Age period going into the AD 100s, the AD 150s and so on. So where the Romans in the south, they were happily I know what you think. It looks like two figures on that one, doesn't it? Where the Romans in the south would had their frescoes and they had their mosaic floors. What we've got is they are painted pebbles. We talk about painted objects from, say, the Neanderthals. You know, we say, well, the Neanderthals were the first people to paint pebbles. 60,000 years ago. The first people to ever paint anything, and they still painted pebbles in Shetland, right? 1,900 years ago. Very, very top stuff. And again, these painted designs, these ochre designs, the base ochre designs on them. Obviously, the color's going to change when you fire when you fire the. So you'd add ochre. You might actually mix the ochre with like a fixative, something like maybe a waxy type fixative, with maybe some oils added, and then when that goes, it all that stuff melts away, but then it's fixed and absorbed into the stone. And then we go on to the next bit, right? It says an annular amber bead fragment. Is this to do with some kind of amber object that's a curved amber object? What is going on here? And again, amber beads. This is Shetland. The amber comes from the amber actually comes from Poland. How does it get here from Poland? This is Shetland, right? So again, an ovoid amber bead fragment, right? Amber, trade, communication, right? I haven't got any objects to actually show you. I wish I'd copied this one, but they've actually found pumice objects. Pumice objects, which would be the byproduct of volcanic activity, that has also been carved into objects. But as you know, shears. I tell you what, if I excavate these out the ground, right, and get a blacksmith to make a copy of these, and it'd be exactly the same type of shears that I used in a TV film, which is out soon. Iron shears, which are not too different than the ones I've got. Obviously, I haven't got any shears with me today, but again, iron shears, right? Very important for their very hardy sheepies, sheeps that they've got on the island of Shetland. So I've got the little weird objects like this. This is a ring-headed pin, right? So this is a bronze object, right? A ring-headed pin. And you're thinking, some of these objects are really, really familiar, right? A ring-headed pin, right? is that some kind of a mountain object when we're actually going to be thinking about working in leather, for example. You know, all these interesting things, and trying to again think about these objects as being connected to us by their design and shape and form, and they're creating these objects at the site. They're making these objects at the site. They're actually these objects are being manufactured there, right there on the site. So the objects, you know, over there was a kiln, right, a furnace, right, and these objects themselves are a byproduct of that site. So we're finding objects that were undoubtedly made local, made there, and are a part of the fabric of the landscape. Oh yeah, chainmail. Yeah, a bronze, not Bronze Age, Iron Age chainmail from Shetland. You can't make it up, can you? This is not medieval. This is Iron Age chainmail. Chains, chain links. That's what it says. Chain links. So you start to think, right, okay. So the Romans actually had chainmail, right? But these people decided to come up with the same type of technology as well. Or did they find a Roman wandering around one day and say, "Oh, look at me"? So some of the stuff that we find at this site, we know that the Romans used chainmail, right? We don't have much evidence of it. We got it from their illustrations. You go and excavate at Shetland, and they, guess what? They've got bronze chainmail. This is a very interesting object. It's a fibula brooch. Basically, I don't need to be an expert to tell you, but that's a Roman style, Roman age object. Basically, you've got this shaped like a trumpet, like a fibula, and you've got you've got a spring mechanism there and a pin that would go into a guard over here, right? And this is what this is. This is what this is. Double linked chain. And again, this isn't a slavery chain, you know. This is maybe they had a double linked chain belt. Isn't that interesting? A double linked chain belt. Right, it's a bit heavy to go around your neck, right? This isn't, you know, this isn't to keep any animal or anything sort of, you know, in sort of slavery or servitude or whatever. But this again, these objects found on the site, fascinating. That's not a good image, but that's again another image of the fibula brooch. Hopefully, we got one a bit later. Now, what we do know at this site, we've got lots of evidence of metalworking. In fact, it's not just building number 8. There's evidence of metalworking in building 14 and building 21 and other buildings. Right, and this is the thing. We've got lots of evidence of metalworking across the site. Now, zinc and copper creates brass, right? So you've got tin and copper creates bronze. Hang on a minute, you've got them making brass objects as well. So again, this is like, wow. And you know, across the site, a total of 115 mold fragments have been found across this site. 115 mold fragments, and these are 2 of them, right? 115 mold fragments. This was a mecca for making objects in the Iron Age at Scatness. This is the place to be. And then look at that. It's an intact half of a mold, right? So we've actually got a mold, right? It's half of a mold. So again, you know, they've got mold, they've got all this technology. I tell you what, right? They've excavated probably, if I can work it out, maybe about a third of scatness, probably all the block, but I don't know. No, a bit more than that, probably not half, maybe 2/5 of scatness. So they, you imagine what's across the rest of the site, right? You might even find a mold to make a statue of Lloyd George somewhere. You know, I love my Lloyd George. So this is basically the top one is a hand pin mold. It's a little pin for a hand pin. There you go. It's just quite as simple as that. You can, it's there. You've got two bits of a or is these individual molds, depending if they need if the pin needed a top or not. But anyway, they just pour it in there. Maybe it's a one-piece mold. But you've got a hand pin, another set of hand pin molds at the bottom, right? A lozenge shaped mold is what is this? You know, there's more of these lozenge shaped molds at the site. So overnight you're starting to think, well, these people were going places. That there's a lot to be said about these people and what they're creating. And what their society is telling us. Again, mold fragments, more of these pins. They love making their pins across the site, right? And this is another spring for a brooch. To make these wonderful pins, right? And again, another example of a brooch spring. And again, this technology is something that they're not bringing in. It's not something from down the road. They're making this stuff. They're creating this stuff. But maybe this multicolored bangle fragment might not be local. It's glass, right? Glass found at the site. And we've got, it's saying here, 3 multicolored, highly decorated fragments of glass bangles that are very likely to have come from a very, very long distance away. Looking very Roman to me. Again, look at that. Andy, don't start chewing this. This is not the type of thing you get in a local shop when you were a child, right? But it looks like that. It looked very I don't know, it could be very modernish looking, right? It's really difficult to see that. But then you've got a multi-colored bangle fragment. Again, these are bangle fragments, glass bangles, multicolored glass bangle fragments. Again, fascinating. I wanted to show you these to give you an idea of this technology, an idea of this world. Look at that. Another multicolored bangle fragment. Again, this is a world that's going places. This is a world that's somewhere else. And by the way, when I was taking the photograph of this, there's a bit of the plasty there on the right-hand corner. I think on that note, right? You know, we've got I wanted to show you a lot more, but I think what we will do is take a break, right? And I might actually go maybe trying to address what this is, right? And do some odd things, right? Because this is very similar to, for example, and I'll stop. If you look at that, that's the entrance into Scatness. And look at that. And that is actually from Mycenae, right? The reverse of this is actually the Lion's Gate, which is actually there, right? There's no link with these two types of people, but they're using these triangular stones for entrances in two spectacular, amazing buildings. Right. So what we are going to do, we're gonna have a break now. We're gonna have a 10-minute break, but before we have a 10-minute break, right, let's see what people would like to say. Right. So Andy, anything? What you say? What does that say on the shop? Veering slowly,
Oh, yeah.
losing identity.
Yes, Karen bought me it.
Hang on. Does it say veering slowly?
Yes,
Yes.
it is actually a shipping forecast phrase, apparently. And I'm thinking, well, I've never heard it, and I do listen to the shipping forecast sometimes. But she thought it'd be funny, and I thought, yeah, it just means you think I'm senile, doesn't it?
Did you actually say that, Andy? Did you stand up for yourself?
Yes, I did this time. I said,
Oh
I
my
think that
God.
could be taken the wrong way. I mean, I went to the Barnes Trust meeting last night, and one of the trustees' husband died on Friday from he had dementia, so I didn't wear it just in case.
Yeah, Andy, I don't think, to be honest with you, that would not have gone down well.
No, she wasn't. She didn't come in the end, but I thought, I don't think you've quite thought this one out, Karen. I thought, well, fine, I'll wear it. See if anybody actually does recognise it as a shipping forecast thing. Nobody said anything at the sailing club the other night when I had it on, but then they probably couldn't read it. So they're quite old, some of them. So. So, yes, but yeah, I don't, those the stones with the markings on them. You know, there's that kind of wavy one, looks like a bit of a bay with a like a ploughed field on the bottom of it. I'm putting names to those things, not for 1 minute suggesting that's what they are. They might not be. And then the one with like what looks like contours, that's a modern interpretation again. Very interesting. I'd love to know what they were, but I'm sure we probably never will.
But then again, you say we never will. Sometimes things sit,
it could do something could just pop up.
I used to have a girl who used to come over and reconstruct bones, right? So we had a bone that was a Mesolithic bone and it was fragmented, right? And she would just chuck it all on the table and she'd just look at it. So can't make any sense of that. And then she'd come back the next day and she's like, I can make sense of that. That goes, right? That goes. Can't make any sense of that. You know, and eventually your mind gets around to thinking that way.
Yep, true. Yep. You think if we just look at it long enough, one day it will all become clear.
Well, I think we've been thinking about that lot for life for a long time, Andy.
Mr. Picasso, yes.
Yeah, we'll leave that one.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, and the influences, and I'm assuming that those brooches were made there. They look like they were.
Yes.
Yeah, good. That's really interesting. I have no problem with them, copying, or maybe they influenced the Romans. Who knows? But
oh my God! How dare you, Andy? Just go away.
Oops, sorry. Yeah.
I'm gonna wear my special hat for that one.
Los Fedados.
That's Badania. Right. Okay then. Anything from you, Margaret?
Well, it's just amazing all the different things that they found. Some in stone, all the different metal, stone. There's just everything. It's a real smorgasbord, isn't it?
Smorgasbord. We like the smorgasbord, yes.
And I thought that ring pin looked like a tent peg.
Yes.
Yes.
Why not?
Yeah.
I can't remember the scale of that, but anything. If they've got the technology to do that and think that way, then there's no reason why they couldn't have designed things like that. Yeah. For example, I've got wooden tent pegs, right, which you can still buy, but they had the technology to make metal tent pegs.
Yeah, they did. Well, if they had a tarpaulin roof over the top made out of animal skins, they might have secured it with those pegs.
Oh, how dare you even suggest that? We can't suggest people like that. No. Yeah, exactly. You're right. This is the point. What we do, we make the past sterile, and we make it sort of in a way that's inaccessible, but sometimes it is very accessible. Very.
You just wonder what conversation you would have with an Iron Age person where you would reach common ground that you both
Everything.
understood.
I think it would be more, you know, there would be there would be an Iron Age Karen and Andy, right? The Iron Age Andy would say, "Look at what blooming Karen's just made me," right? I was going to go to a funeral the other week, and they would have been really upset by what's on this, what designs on this. It's just really inappropriate, right? That's exactly what Andy's just said. Yeah, and it's true. It is actually true, right? You can't make this up, you know. And Andy's got a ring that he made when they went on holiday to find stuff, right? So you got a couple going out. They pick off circular things off the beach and they make their own rings. Oh my God, yeah, Andy. They go off and make their own wedding rings out of the gold that they find off the beach. What's different? Nothing.
I could show them my pebble family that I painted as a child. I painted pebbles that look like a family with eyes and nose and a mouth.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, a lot of us kids used to paint pebbles. And during COVID, they did.
Exactly.
Yeah. So some things just haven't changed, have they?
No, they haven't at all. They definitely haven't at all. No, exactly. Right. Anything from you, Judy? Hey, Jude.
Yeah, you know the little round. Oh, they're bigger than pebbles, about an egg size, aren't they? I wondered if they were, you know, if you warm them up and they looked like they were designed to hold in your hand. Could they be warmed up in a fire and used as like a hand warmer? I know it sounds daft.
No. You're talking about the burnt mound theory. The difference is with these stones.
No. The ones with the painted ones with the different designs on.
Yeah, no. I'm with you. I was just about to say.
Right,
so,
okay.
what we need to do, we need to think about the burnt stone stuff, and we're thinking, well, obviously that was to heat water up, but you're talking about the same principle. Yeah, but these are things that haven't been heated up at a massive temperature.
No,
right?
just warm enough to take the tingle out of your fingers when they're.
Well, exactly. I tell you what, right? I tell you what. Isn't it more appropriate to get a stone, right? That's just been lightly heated in the fire, not too much, right? And then you just put that in your bed or whatever, right? Or you know, it's the same thing, right? We overcomplicate our technology. By when we overcomplicate our technology, then we miss the fact that these people had the same problems, right? So what are we talking about? We know that the stone was heated up to impregnate the stone with a design, right? And maybe it might be, look what I've made you today, you know. Oh, that's warm, isn't it? Oh, lovely. It could be the equivalent of a bouquet of flowers. Right, go on.
But because they were different, slightly different shapes and sizes, could you have painted your own and gone, that one's mine because that fits my hand, and I've painted those marks, and that's my identifying mark because that one's mine because it fits my hand?
Oh my God, that's just too bloody obvious. They're all different, exactly. That's my stone. It's like, that's my Lego. Right, okay then.
That's the one that fits my hand.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, that's a really, really good point. Very powerful points, those. Very powerful. Anything from you, David?
No, thank you.
So I think what we'll do, we'll have a 10-minute break and then we'll have a half-an-hour session and we'll call it a night. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I'm gonna call somebody back now and we'll be back in 10. So everybody go and get a drink. David, put the kettle on for all of us. We'll speak to you soon.
Is Andy? Andy? Is Andy there?
Yeah.
I saw a man in Ashmeadow Wood, it was last week, an elderly man, and he said, "Can you tell me where the Spitfire and the Hurricane are?" That he said, "I was here last year, and a man took us to see a Spitfire and a Hurricane in a field, and there was a memorial to the pilots that died in the war." And he said, "We walked up from the promenade, and we came up through a walled garden and into a field, and there was a Spitfire and a Hurricane."
No.
And I said, "Are you sure it was in Arnside?" He said, "Yes, definitely. Yes," he said, "there was the viaduct there, and the coach or the minibus brought them, and they walked up through the woods, through a walled garden and into a field." I said, "Well, I don't recall." He said, "And it was a permanent exhibition."
No.
I thought, well, we would have known about
I think I'd have noticed that, yeah.
Yeah. I said, "Do you mean a little model?" He said, "No, it was a full size
a
Spitfire and a Hurricane," and he was quite definite.
No,
It was here
I'm not
last
aware
year.
of any incident like that or
He would
anything
have
like that
known.
anywhere nearby. No.
I think he must have got mixed up with Lytham St Anne's.
Possibly. There's they flew aircraft out of Fluteborough Airfield, or Cark Airfield, whatever you want to call it, at Fluteborough in the Second World War. And I think that was a training base for Spitfire or Hurricanes. I'm not quite sure which one, but I know they did fly some of those out of there. But I'm not aware of any incident or any memorial or anything. I'm not even aware of a memorial. Never mind. I would have definitely been to see if there'd been a Spitfire and Hurricane put next to them.
Yeah.
So no, not no.
Well,
No,
I was saying to him, I really don't. The only place I could think where they would be able to put something like that would be the playing fields.
Yeah.
But no, it was quite definite. It was Arnside last year.
No, absolutely not. I'm not even aware of any crashes sites anywhere near here either.
No. No. The only memorial I've seen is the one to Seat School.
Yeah, the boys there, yeah.
Yeah. But I didn't know they flew out to Fluteborough.
Yep.
Oh, golly.
Fluteborough?
Yeah.
Fluteborough.
Where the hell's Fluteborough?
Just the other side of Grange. Between Grange and Ulverston.
Well, there's an airport.
There's an airfield there, yeah. Still in use.
Is that where Gilbert used to keep his plane?
No, I think that was over at Walney.
All right.
That's owned by BAE, so it's much more up to date and much better.
So it is what, Walney Island?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Fluteborough was originally built as an airship base.
Was it?
Yeah, they were going to fly airships out of there. They built two at Barrow at Vickers, but they didn't continue it. So it then got taken over as presumably just before World War II or airfield. So it was used during the war. So
absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
Right, let's crack on, folks. Right, so where are we? Right, okay. I don't know the settings going to be on these other ones, but we'll soon see. Right, so we're there. Right. So, right, okay, we were next to these. Yes, long-handled bone combs. So basically, what we've gone from long bone combs. We had stone combs, right? So these are bone combs. So what you've obviously got is you've got carvings on these as well. So you've got an idea of what they're broadcasting to the world, because there's markings on these as well. And one of the comparisons I made with the Roman site that we were looking at with access analysis last week, that site north of Cirencester, which was all part of my dissertation, and we were going to look at access analysis with the ditches site. I said that they've got bone objects found there, and obviously bone objects found at the Shetland site as well. So bone combs. And there's photographs and a long-handled bone comb. And so we've got these found at various other sites in Shetland as well, the Giles Hoff site as well. And we think that these are actually, some of them are likely to be made of antler as well. So, and we've got crustacean bone combs as well. We've got combs made of sea creatures as well. So there's a lot of material that we've got in their armory. And again, more of these long-handled bone combs, which are not that decorated, but they've got markings on them nevertheless. And one thing I'd like to mention, is that that one's a lot clearer, right? Let's just chuck something at you right now. Let's just do this in two bits. So these things here might be sort of indicated as sort of marks to do with age and decay, right? But if we look at this one, right, there's something else going on here, that these are obviously deliberate, right? There's lots on here that, oh, hang on, I've just lost the image. Oh, bugger, hang on. Start again. Right, here we go back to this. Right, so what I was saying was that what we've got is that the stuff that is accidental are these, these are age. But the ones that are actually deliberate are these markings here, and you can see an array over here as well. So I think the point I want to make is that these have not been, these are not sharpening marks supposedly, and these are not marks made by the plough. So they're deliberate marks made on this bone comb. So you can see what I'm saying there, right? So when other people say, oh, they're to do with, they're accidental, or they're to do with this and they're to do with that, but they're deliberate marks, right? So you stand to think that they were actually making these marks for a reason, right? Sorry about that. I got photographs of envelopes. So there we go. We've got these old pins. We've got more of these pins, and it's sort of taken us down that angle, right? And we've already seen this. This is actually part of a penannular brooch, right? And this penannular brooch is a bronze penannular brooch, remains a bronze penannular brooch. And what is a penannular brooch? Well, let's just show you. Penannular brooches, that's a penannular brooch. Right, now these are typical type of Roman era Iron Age brooches, really simple. A bit of curled metal with a pin. That's what a penannular brooch is, right? Very simple, but we've got fragments of penannular brooches at our site here, right? So if we go to there again, right? So that's the remains of a penannular brooch, right? So when I was actually setting this, that is, you can clearly see there that you've got a large penannular brooch fragment there. That's a this is that there is the pin, so that would have curled over to secure the penannular brooch. These would have been used for cloaks and so on. And then what you've got there, you've got that fibula brooch. That's more clearer. So are these being made? Are these being made on the site? you know, are they brought in? It's very likely that, well, put it this way, let's just forget that. These people had the ability to make these things, and we've got mold evidence for them making these things. So they probably made them on the site. Exactly the same type of designs and technology that we actually find across the rest of Roman Britain, right? At this time when Iron Age Shetland, roughly around AD 100, was in an isolated form, as it were, if you want to call it that way. And then what we've got knives. We've got iron knives or an iron razor, right? Typical type of cutlery. You put a bit of bone or a bit of wood on there, right? And that would look very similar to what we've got today. I wouldn't want to shave myself with that unless it was really sharp. And going through the publication, there's loads of images of these bar fragments, and you're thinking about there's bits of metal that are just being made in this way, right? Loads of them. I don't know how many there are, but there's loads that have been found across the site, right? And you're thinking, are these trade objects? And in fact, I know this is going to sound bizarre, right? But they may have had metal pipes that could move water around. Yeah, metal piping, right? Yes. You can clearly see that could actually be a fragment of a metal pipe. And in fact, I do believe that we've got evidence of that as well coming up. So thin bar fragments again, these little thin fragments, these again, what are these? Again, they're making all things that were very familiar to us today, you know, from the tin can that we've got today to cladding of washing machines. You know, it's obviously they don't have washing machines back then. They didn't need them. They had better technology than we've got. But what we've got thin bits of metal. What's all this about? Again, you know, we've got this coming at us, right? And we've got lots of nails being found there as well. So again, this has taken us another direction. So reason why it's taken us another direction, they had nails. They had two bits of wood, and you bang a nail, and you got nails. Wooden dowels or pegs, right? But iron nails. And you're thinking, all right, let's just think about medieval technology from 800 years ago. We think about this technology from 2,000 years ago. And, you know, you've got mortise and tenon joints with buildings in the medieval period. But these people were totally capable of making nails in the Iron Age, about 1,000+ years earlier. And you're thinking, what is going on in our country? Because these people have got the technology to do this, right? They've got this. So you've got this across the site, right? Oh, there we go. Curved bars. Is this piping? Have you got evidence of pipes on site, right? They look like cross sections of piping, right? If they're able to, well, they were. They you know, they could make pipes. It's obvious, right? All you need to do is get these, and you've got pipes, and you've obviously got evidence of not rudimentary pipes. You've got evidence of piping there. They were able to do it. And again, what you've got iron, you've got copper, you've got sheet copper alloys. So they may have added a bit of zinc, maybe tin, and a bit of lead in there, right, to make it sort of a bit more flexible. But this is going to be used for the outside of wooden buckets. Might be used for lining for buckets, storage containers. And you're thinking, okay, a jerry can. I just say that. But how they had the ability, right? They had the technology. It's there, right? So we're not just talking about making knives and swords and bosses for shields and that type of stuff, right? They had the stuff. They had this, right? And again, look at this there, wound and curved copper alloy. So in other words, yeah, there you go. Pipes. There it is. There's a pipe. It's a pipe. Can't make it up. There it is. It's just there. The one on the left. And you know, it's quite amazing that we're seeing this, and maybe it's not amazing. Maybe we've not really thought about this. And you know, small wire fragments, again, there it is. It's for all to see, right? So your mind blows. It completely ruptures, and you think, surely this is what this evidence is this evidence, when you compare it with Roman era evidence, you know, 600 miles south, right? Maybe a bit more than that, 600 miles south, where you think, oh, the Romans had wooden pipes, and you know, they had lead piping, right? These people had copper pipes. They had, you know, there it is. There it is. It's there. I don't need to. They had copper pipes. Amazing. They had copper pipes when we in Victorian Britain had lead piping, right? And then we replaced it with copper piping, right? And you're just thinking, right, okay, there's something really that we're not being told at school here. That there is a fragments of painted glass, right? That is paint. These are painted glass fragments. Absolutely amazing that we're seeing that, right? And then what we then have, we've got a fragment of decorated glass vessel rims. So far tonight, we've seen that these people had the technology to do basically nearly anything, right? So when we talked the other week about them, you know, how did they have a little building? Well, it's not exactly a little building. Have they got building alongside their main building, building 12, building 8? They've got furnaces and fires and hearths in there, right? These people have the technology to do anything. They would have been able to have roof structures that were perfectly, had the ability to have furnaces and all the rest of it. And this is beyond our dreams, from what we knew and from what we understood. And glass is well, I'm going to say it right. I'm going to be very careful now. There's no evidence that we're producing glass in the Iron Age in Britain. In fact, there's very little evidence that we're producing any glass in Roman era Britain. We know that the Roman era Britain is actually they're producing they're actually recycling glass. And it has been discussed that there might be one or two glass blowing locations in Britain in the Roman era, but it's a bit sketchy, right? But we've got glass objects on Shetland. Would they have had the technology in Shetland to make glass objects? And I would say yes, but we don't have the evidence for it. You just think, is all this local? No, this probably most of this glass is actually brought in from elsewhere, right? But they're looking at this and they're thinking, right, you know, this is, we're seeing this technology and we're able to do this. Maybe, you know, maybe not. Why not? This is the thing. Why not? Why can't they? Why? It's all of this stuff is marked as Roman, right? This is Roman. This is Roman material. All of this. These glass objects, right? You know, this is a little glass bead, for example, right? An opaque yellow glass bead. Now, they had the technology to make these things. It's likely that these glass beads have actually come in from somewhere else, right? But again, it's to be tried and tested. The other thing as well is what would be really confusing, right, is for them to find a glass fragment like this, which is glass from the continent, right, thousands of miles away, 2,000 miles away, right, and they melt, they melt this, right, at was it glass melts at about 1,000+ degrees C, and I like lasers and stuff, and they melt this, and then they make it into a bead, right? So the formula of where the materials originated is continental, but they were able to make a bead from this glass that came from the continent in Shetland. Do you see what I'm trying to say? the formula might say that the material's from somewhere else, but the actual production is actually local. They had the technology to do it, and I'm not even debating that one, right? And you've got the, more little sort of opaque glass beads, right? And these blue beads, whenever you find blue beads on archaeological sites in Britain, you always say Syria, Lebanon, right? Or maybe Egypt, right? Blue glass beads, but they're finding blue glass beads. It's a usual sign of Roman era technology to actually have blue glass beads. And again, looking at this, keep thinking and keep understanding. And you got bone pins again. So 1 minute we're talking about metal pins, and then they've got bone pins. These people have got okay, storage containers, right? They can make storage containers out of stone, bone, pottery, metals. They've even got access to glass bowls, because that is what this is. That's part of a glass bowl, and that glass would have actually come from, let me show you. Where the hell is it? I had all these lined up. That. Do you see that? That's known as a gladiator cup from the Roman era, right? And that's a glass gladiator cup. And the same material that you find in Shetland is the same material that's in that object, which is in the Copenhagen Museum, right? That is in Denmark, and the glass for objects that we're talking about that were found at Shetland, I don't know how far, maybe Copenhagen's 1,000 miles away from Shetland, but it's the same technology, same objects. Again, it's absolutely amazing. It's fundamental. It's fascinating, right? And again, as we look at the technology, right? And obviously we've done that, and we've done that. Okay, keep going. And we've done all that. So where are we going to go next? Right, okay. Again, more of these perforated bone pins, right? And what we've got here, we've actually got bone points. Now, what these could be, they could be to do with combs. But you can clearly see that there's designs on these. There's these designs on these bone objects. They're classed as bone points. They're broken off things. They're broken off whatever, right? You could say that maybe these could be used for hunting or whatever, but again, when we think about this and the fascinating nature, this again is known as a bone point, right? And you can see that there isn't 10 centimeters long, right? But it's not far off it. And small, these ain't huge objects, are small objects, but again, that's carved out of bone. And look at that object there, a decorated bone carving. Again, thinking about this and thinking about the designs, and look at these objects here. This is a decorated bone plaque, right? What is a decorated bone plaque? Is meant to be displayed in the house. This is a type of thing that you might actually get. I don't know. You might display today. Like ethnographically displaying something, right? Absolutely fascinating that we've got all this material, right? And we go on to a whalebone vessel, right? That's the inside of the whalebone vessel. Exterior again of the whalebone vessel again, and there we go, a whalebone vessel, right? So we've got bone vessels, we've got whalebone vessel, okay, and the technology behind this, and and it's just. Oh, and by the way, no guesses for what this is. This is a bone toggle, right, or a bone bead, right? You know those Andy had an anorak like me probably. You know those anoraks that used to have toggles, ideal. You know, this is the thing that we always think about their clothing. They you know. They had a bit of skin and they sort of wrapped it around them, and you know these people had trousers. They had coats. They had toggles. They had this technology, right? They were able to keep themselves warm, right? And they were very much like us. They very much had the technology, and this is what we're seeing. And this is a this itself. You can imagine that there is associated. Basically, you've got this is a very soft, non-fused piece of bone, right? And you can see that this has got the heads of the bone. You can see that these things would be quite decorative. You could paint that, and it would look really decorative. And again, a perforated whalebone object. So these people used everything that they found as part of their society. So what I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to call this a day, right? And the reason why I'm going to call this a day is because this Roman stuff ties nicely in with next week. But before we do call it a day, there's a couple of things I want to show you, right? And what I want to show you, well, just two images, is this itself is it says a triangular lintel provided an impressive entrance into the Broch of Old Scatness. In reality, this thin flagstone would have had limited structural use, with the weight being taken by the capstone and corbelled side stones. So in other words, what we're talking about is that this is an interesting entrance stone, right? It's not taking a lot of weight. However, if you look at back to this stone, which has actually got a lintel underneath it, this looks very similar to our example at Scatness, but from two different periods, from two different worlds. And again, you turn this around, this is highly decorated, right? I think the point to be made is that you go to different parts of the world, people have things that broadcast something, and are very similar to other places, right? And it's got to be remarked that people are very similar. People have got links in their minds rather than be able to be linked physically. In other words, they're producing the same things in different parts of the world, right, for the same reason, right? And there's no communication. This is what we see with the prehistoric world, and this is what we see with humanity today. There's so much that we've got in common, and this is what we can see with our history and archaeology. So what I want us to do is I want us to do the Roman bit of the evidence at Scatness next week, and I want us to then do the access analysis stuff with Scatness, and which we've done most of it, and then that will lead us into understanding the site, the ditches, which is north of Cirencester. So we'll do that next week. So what we're going to do, we're going to see if there's any questions, and then we'll call it a day. So right, let's start off with Andy. Anything you'd like to say?
No. I like the idea of the triangular capstone turning up in completely different cultures. I love the way that people come up with the same ideas and the same solutions.
Yes.
It echoed so many times in so many places over so many centuries as well.
Exactly. That's
And yeah, obviously breeding ground for conspiracy theories, or whatever theories, and maybe not conspiracy theories, but
yeah,
understandable.
But again, people think the same. It's wherever we go. That's what humanity's like.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that, Andy. Judith, we'll come on to you after we do Margaret, and then we'll do David.
I'm just astounded that anybody managed to find the Shetlands. They're so remote and so far away. The people that were sailing there, would there have been any signs that there was land ahoy? They could have so easily
no,
missed them, couldn't they?
Hoy's in Orkney, love. I know what you mean. The way people do is they just continue, and they just flow, and they just go places. They just go places. Like they got to Iceland eventually, and they got to Greenland, and they got to North America, but there was already people there. You know, if you didn't know it, islands over there as well. Do you know what I mean? If you didn't know it, you got the Hebridean Islands. It's just when you go out of your door. As a quote from I think it's The Hobbit, going outside your door, Frodo, is a very frightening place.
But the boats that they had would have been so basic, wouldn't they?
Hang on a minute. Right, stop. You've seen all the technology that these people had. Maybe they had something. Maybe they had a little bit of something that we don't know. They didn't have a Titanic, which sank, right? There was a lot more going for these people than meets the eye. Okay, before we'll do next week. But before we go on to next week and we start thinking about next week, right? If there's no links with any of the technology between Shetland and the Roman world, right? These people were equally capable as any Roman era metallurgist, technical expert. These people were able to do things without any need or any influence from Rome at all, right? If that's what comes out next week, then fine. If it comes out there's a link, then fine. If it comes out, as Andy said, maybe we taught them one or two things. The Romans couldn't create blocks. These people did. The Romans needed mortar. These people didn't. These people were able to make metal in such small places. The Romans didn't. They were able to create pots when the Romans needed vast furnaces and lots of material to make their pots, right? I don't need to say any more.
It's just astounding.
That's the point. It is astounding.
Yeah.
It is astounding. It is astounding. It really is. Right. Okay. Thank you for that, Margaret. Anything from you, David?
No, thank you. So thank you.
Okay. And finally, Judith. You're on for you, David.
Yeah.
No,
Bye.
Dave.
Hi, David.
Bye.
See you next week, Dave. No.
Yeah.
Bye, David.
Bye,
Bye.
Dave. Have a good one. Okay.
Yeah.
Good to see you still with us. Maybe you send him another card, Margaret.
That's embarrassing.
No, a welcome back, David card. That'll do.
No, but it was almost I hope you're not dead, David card. Embarrassing.
A bit. All right. Okay. Judith.
It's not a question. It's a comment, really. I think there's something about island folks that makes them very hardy. It's different from living on a vast mainland with sweeping vast landscapes and prairies and tundra and all of this. It's different on an island, isn't it? It's very compact, and you have to be very resilient and very resourceful.
Look at our side. That's almost an island in Cumbria.
Yeah.
And as for Milham in Cumbria, right, that is an island because nobody ever goes there.
Yeah.
I tell you what, Milham has got to be the only place that you there's a train bridge at Milham, right? And I can remember the slats at the train bridge were big enough to fall down onto the railway track.
Yeah.
and I didn't use that bridge again, except I was living there at the time, and I thought I don't want to be here. There's waves of yeah. I don't even know why I mentioned that now. My head's going
now.
It's recorded, yeah. What I'm trying to say is that
it,
places can be islands as well.
Yep.
Places can be very interesting islands, you know. It's just, yeah. But I know what you're saying. I do know exactly what you're saying. So
you have to do a lot with a little, don't you, on an island?
yeah, exactly. And my sheep, my Borray sheep.
Oh.
No man is an island unless it's unless it's the Isle of Man.
Oh.
That was absolutely terrible.
Oh, it was sweet.
Terrible. Sweet, exactly. Right, anyone else got anything to say before we finish?
No, thank you. That's good.
Okay, anything else, Judith, before we go?
No, that's it. Thank you. Very interesting. Thank you.
Okay, well, no doubt I'll be on. No doubt I'll be on tomorrow. So I really appreciate. I don't know where everybody was tonight, but it was an interesting one, and we'll be back tomorrow. And next week is going to be mind blowing, right? Because we've got a lot to get our minds around, right?
Oh dear.
And we'll do the full thing. We're going to zoom in. We'll do the full thing next week. I'm an alien. That's what we're doing next week.
Jolly good.
All right then. All right then,
well.
folks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
No, Andy. See you next week.
Bye.
No, Margaret. And no, Judith. See you next week. And everybody else online as well, YouTube. Thank you very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm going to look in the chat box on 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Action.